was good, but they came to Rucker to learn lessons.
Basketball is even something more than what the people see.
Yo, what is the real? What is the real?
It's the realest you can get.
A history of great basketball players.
You had to be there 4 hours early, 5 hours early.
How do you define the real Rucker? The real Rucker.
Brooklyn against Manhattan, Jersey against the Bronx. It was more rivalry than anything back then.
You can hear the roar of the crowd all the way down there, man.
Most of you don't know the real history of Rucker Park's original Pro League.
You know, their favorite stars, guys that they see on the cover of magazines.
I'm Lonnie Hawkins. I know how to do all I know how to shoot like big balls.
The real pro, the real pro.
People would come and see our layup lines by themselves.
The real legend, the real legend.
The first game I played in the Rucker tournament.
The real organizer, the real organizers. The real crowd, the real crowd. The real culture, the real culture.
Okay, well, what else is there in the inner city that we can bottle and
Definitely,
package?
all due respect, everybody know about Joe and the stuff that he did, you know what I'm saying, back in the days, and you know, they paved the way for us, you know what I'm saying?
You think you know, you think you know. Get to know, get to know. The real, the real.
The Rucker. Though many believe they know the history, few are conscious of how far-reaching the effects are. In order to truly understand this great legacy, you must hear it from those who lived it. This type of tour has to contain recognition of New York Times and heralded basketball history.
Well, the music at that time was strictly, you know, it was jazz and blues, and before the NBA, there was no NBA. The NBA was the fruition of the BAA. It was the fruition of the BAA, Basketball Association of America, and the NBL, National Basketball. That was the only recognized league, National Basketball League, beside the ABA. All those leagues refused entrance for the Renaissance Center. There were no Negro leagues outside of the leagues with the Lawenda, the Smart Set from Brooklyn, the Spartans, the St. Philip's Red and Black Machine, Monticello. It was like an amateur league. And how a lot of that broke up was because somebody got paid $3. They made him a professional, so that knocked that out the box. But when Bob Douglas went down to try to get into one of the leagues, turn thumbs up. Ask them, did any of them ever play in a wire cage?
They played the World Championship game in Chicago when gangsters ruled Chicago and no blacks was doing nothing, and they won a championship in Chicago, the Chicago Stadium, and traveled this country taking basketball. I'm talking about the rims all over this country.
1939. And then 40 the Trotters won it. So in 2 successive years, you had 2 African-American teams that won it. We came back with 5 fellas from the 39 team, and we won it again as the Washington Bears. So in the span of 5 years, the 5 fellas, Puggy, Pop, myself, Cooper, and Zach Clayton, we played on 2 world championships.
You know, I think the whole early days of professional basketball really need to be explained.
Because the first thing that comes out of their mouth, they tell you about the Knicks. I said, we're talking about 1960, 1970. How do you figure you were the first one that won something for New York City?
People don't understand what happened, what the climate was, what it was all about, and the whole juxtaposition of the game and black culture.
In those days, the game was played below the rim. What brought basketball to its foremost now, blacks came in and took the game, as we call, above the rim.
A history of great basketball players.
We, as young blacks, knew that we had people who never even got a shot at the NBA that could give any team in the NBA, including the Philadelphia Warriors, a run for their money.
All these guys were older and they were professional at the time.
some of the greatest players in basketball, in our opinion, never made it to the NBA. Never had a chance to, because it was a different ball game then.
Bobby Wanzer played with the Royals. Pop Gates played with the Wrens. And Zeke Zunicola was an All-American for Niagara, and he played with Tri-City too. You know, people see a guy playing basketball on TV, oh man, I want to be like, I don't want to be like that. I want to be like them people that I touched. Ed Warner, Eddie Younger, you know what I mean?
Charlie
Bob
Isles,
Gates,
Puggy Bell. People who gave something back, who were nice.
And that's how we are.
And that's what life is about.
I listen to Carl and Jack, especially Carl. Carl will say, we pattern ourselves after you.
Born in 1923, at the heart of the Harlem Renaissance, Holcomb L. Rucker is by the mid-1950s the grandfather of summer basketball competition, from tots to the professional divisions.
Rucker was one of the nicest people that you ever wanted to meet. He was fair with everybody, and he wasn't selfish about nothing. I mean, it was like me and him was boys, but he was older, but he acted like that, you know, and I thought a lot of him, really. Eddie Younger and Holcomb Rucker, that was the park stuff. They got us jobs in the park, so we worked in the park that summer.
And Lorraine was like the driving force of the whole family. She directed the community center where Rucker worked for Lorraine.
Lorraine Younger was the sister of Sonny and Eddie Younger, the former New York Wren. Lorraine had taken an interest in the streetwise Bob McCullough. She would introduce him to a man and a life that would allow him to permanently etch his name in history.
Lorraine stood in front of gangs, in the middle of gangs that basically were getting ready to have shootouts, and they respected us so much that they said, hey, listen, let's just cut this out for now. And she had groups that she talked to. Bob was one of those guys in the group. He didn't listen at first, but after a while he began to listen. And I think she was the driving force behind him in terms of his career going to college, and basically between her and Rucker, going to college and basically coming out and getting a master's degree and, you know, being a community activist.
McCullough was with Rucker when he was 12 years old, man. I seen him in the park. You know, I was 20 or 19 or whatever.
Bob McCullough, he was with that other group. They recognized the Renaissance for what they did, but they had their own group for whatever they were doing, you know.
I was practicing, and Ernie Morris used to play on 40th Street, Lenox Avenue. Ollie Edinburgh was the park recreation director in that park. Little did I know the guys from the Wrens used to play there, Benny Garrett, John Isaac then, okay, in that same park. 1952, I was 11 years old, I went to Frederick Douglass Junior High School. I went to Frederick Douglass Junior High School and I met a guy named Freddie Crawford. I was in the park because it's from the neighborhood. And Ernie Morris was on a team called the Blue Jays. And they used to practice in the park. And this fat boy, Billy Banks, said, hey, McCullough, I'm going to the St. C trials. I said, St. C, what is that? He said, I'm going to the Rucker. Rucker is the coach for St. C. So it meant nothing to me, but it must have been something big. And I said to Rucker, when he was looking around, I held my finger up, I said, I scored 4 points. He said, I'm not looking for scores. I'm looking for guys who can play the game.
Today they talk about Rucker, they talk about 155th Street. We talking about 129th Street, the 7th Avenue, where they had a hole in the ground. They had to get out and push the water up so you could make your layup. But in terms of Rucker, I've been affiliated with the Rucker ever since I was about 14. So, you know, so this is like junior high school, high school, college, unlimited, and then the pros.
Our team that first played in the tournament was 1954. In 1955, our high school team won the championship in the high school division, and fortunately, I received the MVP in that tournament when I was a senior in high school in the Rucker tournament. That was down on 127th Street and 7th Avenue in Harlem.
No, let's see. Will Chamberlain, the great Sherman White played then. There were a lot of great players. And Rabbit Wallflower played. The great Rabbit Wallflower. Connie Hawkins came up and played at that time.
We saw Wilt and them play against Brooklyn.
I was there with it all. I played against Will, Connie, Jackie, Austin Carr, Sad Sand, Freddie Crawford, Emmett Bryan. One year we played for the championship. We played against the Knicks. Bill Bradley, Willis Reed, Freddie Crawford, Nate Bowman, Dave Stallworth. Yeah, they had the whole crew. And it was me, Pablo, Helicopter, Wingo, you know, the guys, Guy Hughes, the guys in the neighborhood. And we won the tournament.
I played on every level of the tournament. Actually, after I graduated from Commerce, went to New York University, and we put a team in the tournament that had myself and Zach Sanders and Russ Cunningham and Al Barton and Roger Gibbs. And on the college level, we won the championships, and once again, I had a chance to win an MVP in the tournament.
We played with Rucker, and we went to Brooklyn, and we only had 6 men. 2 guys filed out, and Rucker told us to go in his trunk and get the old sneakers out. And we got there and got some Army sneakers, some green and black sneakers out. And Rucker said, well, I ain't gonna be able to do nothing but pass it. We said, that's all you need to do, Rucker. But he shot one of them old set shots for us and stuff. And he was just, he was our leader, our mentor, but he was a friend too. Yeah, he was our friend, man, you know, and the family. He brought up a beautiful family.
It's amazing how word got around about different programs. But at that time, it wasn't hard because there was only one major tournament in New York then, and that was the Holcomb Rucker tournament.
We had Buster Johnson, Timmy Vincent, and Buddy Thompson with us. And we were in college. That was our first year in college, 53. So when we played, we actually were not pros. But we went all the way to the finals, and we played against the best players in Harlem, which was Ed Warner, Rabbit Wallflower, Herman Taylor, Georgie Moore. All these guys played with the Globetrotters, the Wrens, or whatever.
Jim Brady.
Yeah, Jim Brady, Sonny Jameson.
Wilt Chamberlain was playing in the league. But even when Wilt Chamberlain, Willis Reed, and Sat Sanders, and all of those guys were playing in the league, the only people who were covering was our paper. I was the only one covering the league then.
Chick Whiteman, Shots.
Georgie Moore.
Yeah, all of these guys played in professional basketball. At that time, the NBA only had 8 teams. And they had maybe 2 or 3 teams with blacks on them, you know? And they would have one black on the team or whatever.
There was no music like you have now. There's no music in the park at all. Nobody had radios or anything. There was no boom boxes. But the one thing that I remember then that was whenever the big rivalry then were the teams from Brooklyn against the teams from Harlem. That was the major rivalry.
Hey, remember what was the ref they used to have at night?
Bob, remember when Walsall got in with the crowd? Nobody couldn't find him on the court.
Tell them.
And he ran on the court.
Tell them about Walsall. Tell them.
He cheated. I just talked about it since he's gone. Remember that.
We didn't trust them, and they didn't trust us. So it was always, you know, that kind of atmosphere. But the thing that overrid everything else, all the hanger-ons, all of the fans and all, were the guys.
I can remember coming out here a number of times in a suit and tie when we were still wearing suits and ties to school. After school in the rain or snow or what have you, talking to Rucker about some of the things that he had on his mind with regard to getting guys like us who maybe didn't have a future at that time, getting us into schools and getting us started on the right direction and become productive members of society.